Okay. So hello and aloha. Welcome to your December edition of TTT, Thursday at 3. And we're here with our realtor and mortgage partners from 365, Kona of Hawaii and Hilo. And we hope that you guys are going to get something out of this. So if you are in the chat live with us right now, feel free to ask questions in the chat, and we're also going to be opening it up to questions and answers at the end as well. And we will answer all of your questions about mortgage and real estate, anything you want to talk about in terms of the mortgage and real estate market on the island. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a round robin starting from West Hawaii all the way to East Hawaii with realtors from the different areas, talking about their real estate market and the success story that they're having. And then we're going to pop over to the Wynn's and talk about mortgage. So let me do a quick introduction. We have Lance Owens of Louisville Real Estate. He's also the president of the West Hawaii Association of Realtors. Good to have you here, Lance. We have Delania Branham from eXp Realty, and she's going to be our little, helper over here in the Kona market. And then it looks like Jana is not here yet. She's our Waikoloa person. But we also have Amber Haley, Amber, there you are. She's from Hawaii Life, and she's in our East Hawaii market. And then we have Marla Wynn and Scott Wynn, give a little wave. And they're with the Wynn and Egan team, Citywide Mortgage. So let's start this whole thing off with a tap into what's happening in the single family home market. I'm gonna give that to Lance, and then Delania, you can take condos, but you guys can cross breed if you guys want to talk about what's happening that you're seeing out there in the market. So Lance, let's start with you. What are you doing and what are you seeing and how's the market?
Hey, thanks, Julie. First of all, I just kind of want to let everybody know that we've gotten year to date. I was just looking at the numbers. I know on Kimmy and I's side, we've helped 38 people get into a home this year. So that's pretty awesome. That's a good number. And probably 3/4 of them were through this group. So that's awesome to hear too. And I'm talking about the single family homes, some interesting numbers looking at it, which is a good thing. Of the 46 that sold, 34 of them were financed. So a lot of people are always worried that cash deals are buying me out. I can't get financing. I don't have to stand a chance. Good news is a good, what is that? 3/4 of them were financed. So that was great news to hear. There's some out there still available, and I'm seeing more starting to come on the market.
And how is the multiple offer over asking experience that you're seeing?
Still seeing it on some, not on everything. Condos, we're seeing that a lot on. We've kind of talked about previously how when the homes escalate in value, the condos start really selling pretty quick. So the condos we're seeing multiple offers on. Homes, not as much.
Okay. And then so your success story was the fact that you put 38 people in the housing this year.
Yes, that's my success story, that we've helped 38
We're doing Merry and Bright today.
Yes. So I think that I didn't realize that number was so high, and I think that's very happy to think that many people made their dream come true here. So
yeah, that's great. Delania, what's happening that you're seeing out there, and specifically what are you seeing in the condo market, and what's your Merry and Bright story?
It's the same thing. It's always been low inventory and rising prices. One thing I think is interesting, and I haven't really looked across the board to see if this is happening, but I've noticed sometimes a unit will come up in a condo and then another one and then another one and another one. It's sort of like, in a neighborhood where it's like, oh, well, they're going to sell. Maybe we should sell. So that's helping a little bit. There's new listings coming on every day. So yes, inventory is low, but there's stuff coming. So, hang in there. Success story. There's two. So I have a buyer for a condo. She wanted a specific complex. I just went back and checked, and it was December of last year. She started looking. Hit some roadblocks, but she vowed that she was not going to spend another winter in Michigan. And we opened escrow. She closed escrow on her place early November. So her dream came true. She's not going to be in Michigan this winter. She'll be in her condo looking at the ocean. She's very happy. And then, to kind of tag on with market and pricing, I have a couple that I just put into escrow, and we are under asking price. They got a really good deal on the property because it sat on the market for a couple of days. So we knew they weren't hit with multiple offers. We knew that there was some wiggle room in there. And so, you know, we kind of negotiated back and forth, and they're thrilled. We were able to get the price that they wanted. And so they too will be spending next Christmas in Hawaii.
There we go. So in general, with, you know, just because, you know, we've been seeing a lot of people looking for housing, is the way to kind of look at this is if you see a listing that lasts for more than 36 hours on the market, then maybe you have a shot at not dealing with multiple offer situation, or is that
sometimes yeah, I mean, it just depends, because sometimes the seller's agent will give a 5-day window to accept offers. So it's good to kind of right off the bat see if they have an offer within 24 hours, then you know you're going to be multiple offer situation, bidding war. But if they haven't gotten anything and they seem really eager to see your offer, and you know it's been a couple of days, you can kind of, you know, the agent can kind of feel out the other side and get an idea of where it's at. And if it's been on for a month, then like, yeah, you could definitely lowball them.
Yeah. And Lance, speaking of that, again, just because I'm learning more about real estate, just watching, you know, Eric do everything. Do sellers expect buyers, agents to call them and ask them, have you received offers? How many? Do they ever tell you like maybe what they're coming in at? I mean, what level of information can you get from the other side in terms of offers that have already come in?
You know, it depends on the relationship you have with that other realtor, because some of them are pretty open and they will share a lot with you. Like, look, if you're not coming in over asking, I probably wouldn't write it. You know, they don't tell you not to, but they give you hints that you can read between the lines type of thing. Some agent don't want to share anything, you know, and I think it's good for the agent to share it myself, because your fiduciary duty is to get the most for your client, and you should talk to the other realtors, because I've had some of them just walk away and be afraid to write an offer because they thought you had so many over asking, and maybe you know at one point early on in this we had several under asking and nobody was even at asking, and somebody didn't even write offers because they were afraid. So I think, you know, that's what we've preached a lot from the beginning, is that you get somebody, you know, that has been here for a while and has a relationship built with the other realtors, so they can make that call and get an honest answer. So
good feedback. Okay, cool. Okay, so then in the lack of Jana being here, I know that she was showing some buyers today. I'm not going to speculate on what's happening in the Waikoloa market, but as we can probably guess, she's been busy. There's a bunch of people who have decided that Waikoloa Village is probably maybe their best bet now, because prices are a little bit lower up there. You can do it. And they're going up there. So Lance, what can you say about that?
I was just going to say, because I was just looking at today's hot sheet, and there's 5 new listings in Waikoloa today.
5 new listings in today?
5 new listings today. We've got a condo, Ali Milani at 400. We have a house at 1.425. We have another one at 1.875, another one at 950, and 848 out there. So the 848 and the 400 are not bad prices for those two. Yeah. Okay. That's good. And then let's jump over to East Hawaii. Amber.
Aloha, everybody, from the rainy east side. Actually, sun's out right now, but we'll see. So a lot of the same that you're seeing across the island, still, you know, increasingly lower inventory, and our median sales price still seems to be creeping up. But I did just want to mention, since we're talking about Marion Bright and some success stories, you know, we have had this fall, we have had a lot of financing offers, and we had somebody close on a house last month that was financing with 1% down in a really busy, popular neighborhood. And, you know, they were really strong on their terms, but it's possible. So I do just want to encourage everybody, because I still am hearing a lot of talk from my clients, and just from like being at a Christmas party this weekend, where people are saying things, because it's such a crazy time in real estate, but I'm hearing a lot of things like, oh, you have to have all cash, or you have to find a house before it hits the market. And while, you know, it is a tough market to be a buyer, you know, we do need to also speak facts. And the vast majority of sales right now are from homes that are coming on the market and then selling. You know, you don't have to find an off-market property or before it hits the market. vast majority of my sales and the majority of sales across the island are properties that are coming on the market, not just who you know off market. And also we're seeing more and more financing offers get accepted. And also I wanted to tag on to what Lance was saying about, you know, how much the other agents will say or not say. Sometimes agents are really strategic about what they'll say, and you just really never know. I've had a lot of agents make it sound like we have a lot of competition and maybe a lot of cash buyers, and we come in with a financing offer, maybe not what sounds like it's going to be the greatest offer, and it gets accepted. So you just really, really never know. And you just have to make a decision as a buyer, what's right for you, regardless of, you know, what's going on with potentially all the other buyers. So yeah, we're seeing some exciting things. I am seeing a little more days on market, it seems like, and that's probably a little bit seasonal. We're getting into the holidays. A lot of people are saying, okay, we're going to come back in January, February, March to house hunt. So that's probably a little bit seasonal, but yeah, a little more days on market overall.
Okay. And then also for the realtors in the room, if you put in an offer, because this just came up today, this is just a good question, and you're giving your highest and best, do they sometimes come back and say, we need a better, higher and best? Or do they just take the offers and that's your highest and best was your best offer and that was it? You're not going to get another shot at raising the price. What happens with that? Lance, what happens? Have you seen that? Do you get a chance to hire investor it?
We do. And sometimes, and I do hear back from agents, and they'll, again, a lot of it has to do with the relationship, because they know certain realtors can finish the deal and get it across the finish line. So they'll call up and say, look, your terms are the best out there. Your price isn't. Can you come up a little bit more? Maybe not even to the highest price we got because your terms are good, or vice versa. Like, your price is great, but your terms aren't working, and here's why. So yeah, it does happen like that.
And Delania, what's your experience with that?
Yeah, same thing. Relationships are important in this market, and communication is important in this market. I think a lot of times someone will just submit an offer and not pick up the phone and not, you know, try to create a relationship if you don't already have one with that agent. And that could be the key, whether or not they feel like they want to work with you or don't want to work with you. That can help, you know, grease the wheels a little bit. Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, this is obviously we're talking strategy too for some of these people who are looking for homes right now. Okay, so let's hop into finances. Let's talk about the mortgage market. So Marla and Scott, what do we have here?
Okay. Well, I, rather than a success story, I wanted to share kind of some information I thought would be helpful for us to track month to month. And so I pulled all the third quarter data for all the loans that we did here in Hawaii. And we only have average of 3 months from the time our buyers got pre-approved until they went into escrow. So I think that speaks a lot to, you know, that they are getting their offers accepted. It only took an average of 3 months to make that happen. And the lowest, well, first of all the loans we did in the last quarter were for single family homes, which is not typical. But for us, we didn't finance any condos in the last quarter. The lowest priced home we financed was $635,000, and the highest priced home was $1,060,000. And then the median price was $937,500. So
that's about the average price of a single family home in Kona right now. So that's about right. Okay. And then
that's it.
Okay.
Have a rates?
Yeah, rates. Like after what they said, you know, the news came out yesterday on rates. I was going to see what you guys.
Oh, one thing I want to bring up too, sorry, is that the conforming loan limits increased in 2022 to $937,500 in Hawaii. So now you can get a conforming loan and borrow up to $937,500, which means if you're putting 20% down, you can go well over $1 million in a purchase price. So that's really good. It comes with better rates. They're traded on the secondary market, so they have better rates or better terms and fees, and they are a little bit easier to qualify for. So I want to mention that.
Well, a question with that, because that came up today too. Are people doing 50% financing, 20%, 30%?
I actually looked at that too, and we did an owner-occupied property with only 5% down. And then our second homes are putting between 20 and 25% down, and investment properties, they put, 30+% down, but nobody went as high as 40%.
Oh, okay. And they still got their offer accepted. That's great.
Mhm.
And Scott, do you have something to add to the mix?
So interest rates have really just been on the increase since probably we hit a low of 7.5%.
Oh, he's cutting in and out, Mark.
Why does my audio always do this?
So we'll go back again. You cut out right when you were like a what percent?
Sure. So they hit a low in August at 2.75. Currently, we're sitting on an average of around 3.125%. So we're seeing a bit of an increase in interest rates over that time period. I continue to see that go up, and that's really the outlook for the full 2020 year.
He's cutting out again. Okay.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
You can come back to me if you want.
Well, you hold the key to figuring out what's happening with the finances in 2022.
Real quick, I heard something when I was at the NAR event in Chicago, where we're waiting for Scott to do that. They announced that they're loaning money on cryptocurrency. You could borrow up to $40,000. So if you wanted to buy a home, you had Bitcoin, but you didn't want to get rid of it, you think it's going to go up, you could borrow up to $40,000 on your
against Bitcoin. Wow.
Yeah.
Now, are these the major banks, or is this only one bank? I mean, is there?
Yes, not all the major banks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're also offering bridge loans. Take that instead.
yeah, exactly. But if Scott and Marla had somebody that needed a little bit more money down or something, they're sitting on Bitcoin that they didn't want to get rid of, would be an interesting option to get that loan on there.
Yeah.
You ready,
fact,
Scott?
Ray, Scott, do you have
Is this any better?
Yeah, that's better.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right. So as far as the most recent meeting that happened for the Fed funds rate, that's very different from mortgage rates. And so when they talk about interest rates are not increasing, which is what the most recent Fed decision was, to not increase interest rates, that really has no bearing or impact on mortgage rates directly. Really, the reason why the Fed would increase or decrease interest rates are the same reason why mortgage rates do or do not decrease or increase. So they're directly related, but they're not impacting one another, if that makes sense. So one thing that is expected is that we're going to see the Fed increase interest rates over the next year. And we're also expected to see that mortgage rates are going to go up over the next year as well. And that's because they're both related to the same economic indicators that impact those interest rates. So when we see that the Fed changes interest rates, when we see that the next time, which is likely going to happen, I think they've already projected that they're going to do 3 rate increases over 2022. And so when we see that, we won't necessarily see an immediate bump in mortgage interest rates, largely because mortgage interest rates probably will have already increased slightly to account for the same reasons why the Fed is increasing interest rates anyway. And what's a little bit interesting about the Fed's change in interest rates is that generally what we see is when the Fed increases interest rates, we see a drop in mortgage interest rates immediately afterward, and then it increases back up over time. And that's just because of all the economic indicators that impact what the Fed funds rate is doing versus what mortgage rates are doing to the bond market and so on. So hopefully that clears it up a little bit. But as far as the projection, it's expected that interest rates are going to probably end up in the mid to high 3s by the end of 2022.
Okay, which is still pretty good and competitive. I mean, you know, anyone over the age of like 50 always throws out, well, I remember when it was 18%. So, so that's good. That's good news. That's good. And also just because, you know, now that we kind of ran through the thing, the people who are on the call, do you guys have like questions? I noticed that nothing's in chat yet, but do you have questions for the mortgage folks or questions about individual markets that you're thinking about buying in? Now's the time. Jump in. Come on. Okay. Well, I know that there's somebody on this call that was looking at ways to see if they could buy a home in a different market than they really want to live in because they have a good view. And you know what? It's interesting that I go, you know what? You want to be careful about settling, right? And it's interesting to see, I'm going to ask the realtors in the group, Lance, if you know somebody really wants to just make sure they get into the market, but they're kind of settling when they get in the first time. And it's really expensive to sell your house and make it a decision later on. Do you say, hey, you know what? It's a tight market. You do what you do to get in here. Or do you say, wait, what's your opinion on that?
Well, I don't think waiting is going to help us in this market, because I don't see any changes, right? The only thing that's going to change this market is inventory, and we don't have that. We've got no inventory coming in. So I don't think waiting is going to be the answer. And looking at the interest rates, I know they've been saying they're going to go up for how long now, and we still haven't seen them go up, but they have to at some point. You know, like you were just saying, if you're over 50, we've got a whole generation of people that think interest rates should be under 5% right now, or under 3%. You know, and you think about it, we can't keep going on like that. So I don't think waiting's the answer, but I think just take the time to research and make sure you make the right purchase, even if it means writing up 6, 7, 8 offers before you get the right one. Just don't panic buy, because we had a lot of that in the beginning. Remember? Yeah,
I mean, you're talking during like the 2005 run up.
No, in August, remember, all of a sudden everybody just was panic buying over here in August. And we
were because everything else was happening on the mainland. They wanted to get in on our side. Yeah.
So
Delaney, do you have a thought on that? Kind of like a strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't get into something you're not happy with thinking you can just turn around and buy something else, because the prices are so high. The chances of seeing a return on that anytime soon, it's kind of like, and then if prices keep going up and the interest rates go up, I would hate to see somebody get into something and just regret it and go, gosh, I wish we would have waited and bought something different. And I know it's hard to be patient. And I've had a lot of buyers that have just, waited for the right property, but I know that they're in the right property and they're not going to have regrets about what they're in, because I just don't think this is a market where you can just house jump without maybe losing some money in it.
Mm-hmm. Right. In fact, I asked Delania one time, I got a phone call from somebody who said, I just bought this condo in downtown Kona. And let's just say it's not in the best part of town, but they didn't know that because they bought sight unseen. And 4 days after they moved in, they called and said, can we get a realtor to sell this condo? I'm like, So I asked Delania, and Delania said, by the time that you have all the closing costs again and the real estate costs and everything, you're going to lose like $30,000. And they said, okay, I guess we're stuck. And so they stayed. But that's, another thing that happens when you buy sight unseen, sometimes you didn't do a lot of research on the neighborhood. And that's another thing too, that I like to think that one of the things that we offer as this group, I know that all of us with Eric and you guys, the FaceTime and to walk around the property and ask those questions about what the neighborhood feels like, looks like, I think it's valuable information. And then Amber, so if someone says, you know what, I have to live in East Hawaii because I can't afford to live in West Hawaii. Do you say, hey, it's so different over here? You really should think about that. I mean, what's your thought?
Yeah, my thought is, do a lot of research, know what you want, know you're not going to probably get everything that you want, and do that research and then be ready to move. You still got to be ready to move fast in this market, though, once you've done that research. I wouldn't necessarily say if somebody has their heart set on living in Kona that, it is so different on the east side of the island. It really is a different world on the east side of the island. So I think, if you're from off island, spend some time all over different parts of the island, so that you are in a position where you can move fast and make that decision when you need to. But Kona and Hilo are two different places. So it's just a really, really personal decision. I'm somebody who's very happy on both sides of the island. I do well going back and forth. I have family all, in different parts of the island. But I would say most people I know are really an east side kind of person or a west side kind of person. So figure that out probably before you make this huge investment. I've also had clients that I sold to sight unseen at the beginning of the pandemic who have since sold because actually that isn't where they want to live, and they actually do want to live on the other side of the island. So it is a really big decision, and it's a big island. So a lot of climates, a lot of neighborhoods, a lot of choices, and it's a big decision buying a house. So do your research first, but then be ready to move fast.
There you go. That's a good one. I like that one.
Real quick on that, Amber, it's funny because my wife was born and raised in Kailua on Oahu, so it's windy and rainy and everything else, and she loves that. That's her comfort zone. And I was raised in Las Vegas in the desert, so it's like we had this battle. She wanted to move to the east side, and I wanted to move to the west side. And so I know it's.
But look at you! You live on the west side in a cool environment with a lot of rain. Yeah. So you can find.
I didn't win, did I? I still lost it. I didn't even know it.
Yeah, and it is really unique. A lot of people just assume too, like the whole east side is wet and the whole west side is dry. And I have family that lives on the west side, and their house is way wetter than my house on the east side. I live in a sunny pocket of the east side. They live at pretty high elevation on the west side. They're very, very rainy and very, very, a lot of humidity at their house. So, it's a lot of little microclimates.
Yeah. That's why it's important to ask your realtor when you're looking at a house where the elevation is and what they think about the weather pattern in that neighborhood. Because it changes. Like there's parts of Palisades that get drenched, and 2 blocks off of Palisades is dry. So yeah, it's pretty interesting that way. I'm trying to think, looking at some people that what they might be asking. Oh, so I know Bill, you're new. Hi, Bill. You've asked some questions about, affordability and where you can end up, and I'd still believe that living in Hawaii is still better than sitting in 5 feet of snow right now on the mainland. That's just my opinion. So let me see. Can someone read off some of the questions? I'm not seeing anything.
One of them is we have a pre-approval contingent on a home sale. If the home ends up on contract, would that be a potentially competitive offer in this market? I'll let everybody, Amber, go first.
If your other home is in escrow, like if you're selling a home on the mainland, moving to the Big Island, I would never write an offer unless your other property's in escrow, but it's definitely a much less competitive offer, contingent, because if any little hiccup with the sale of that home, that, the sellers know that that's gonna, crash their whole escrow. So the farther along that is in escrow, the better. Like if they're through the inspection period and maybe in the 11th hour of that escrow, that'll be stronger, but it's definitely not as strong. It would definitely probably be better if you could sell that home first. Still possible. We've done it. We've helped a lot of buyers do that, contingent on the sale of another home. But yeah, it's not as strong as if that other property has already sold. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of little things that can go wrong, in an escrow that can kill the deal. And if it's an escrow, especially that, the seller and the buyer in Hawaii and their agents really have nothing to do with and don't know a lot of what's going on. And maybe those agents aren't really communicating, it's a lot more risk for the seller basically to take an offer like that.
Mm-hmm.
Delania?
Yeah, I would agree. I think, there's tiers of risk. The closer that mainland property is to closing, the less risky it is for that seller to take that offer. But if I'm a seller or I'm a listing agent, I'm looking at 2 similar offers and one has even that contingency that it's going to close in 2 weeks, the other offer is stronger because, like Amber said, there's so many things that can happen on the last day of closing. And then, and then that just blows this purchase. So yeah, if you can wait, it's the best thing to do.
Yeah.
I was going to throw in too, just that exactly what both of those you guys said. And on top of that, if it does come into consideration, the 2 biggest things that we're going to want to see is that your buyers have already waived their contingency on the home inspection. So it's been inspected, it's good. And the next thing would be the appraisal. Has the appraisal come in on the house, and is that good? So those are the 2 biggest things if it is in escrow that we would look for.
So let's just say, just ask a question here. So you have 2 buyers. One has this contingency aspect. Does the realtor then say to you, I like your offer. However, we want to see from your other sale of your house, the appraisal and all the inspection reports to make sure that we can look at that to see how viable this sale is going to be on the other side? That's what they do?
Well, yeah, I'll do that when we get something like that and it's a much stronger offer. The first thing I want is a realtor's phone number. And I want access to their statement from escrow to see how much money they got coming. You get real personal things. If you want it to be taken seriously, you need to give up that information to your realtor and have it prepared.
Okay.
So question to tag on that, would it be worth, sorry, we're getting feedback because we sit in the same room together. Would it be worth making that part of their negotiation process when they're looking for a buyer for their property to say, hey, we're looking for a quick inspection period and appraisal ordered as soon as possible with a faster appraisal deadline, because that gives them more leverage to make an offer here if they have a little bit more control over that in the offers that they accept during negotiations. on the property they're selling?
Yes, that would be very good if someone's doing that. Look at their contingency timeline and what it has to, in all the years I've been doing this, 18 years, and the only one time I had somebody, we typically do the home inspection first before they spend the money on the appraisal. And I had one person all these years looked at me and said, why would I do that? If it doesn't appraise, why would I want to spend $600 getting the home inspection done? I'm like, yeah, I guess you're right. It's going to be $600 either way. So whichever one doesn't pan out, it's the same amount of money you lost.
Yeah. And the appraisals, that's something the buyers obviously are responsible for paying for. Yes. And how much do those cost in Hawaii?
Typically around $650, unless they're in an outlying or more rural area, then we've seen them a little bit higher.
Okay. And speaking of that, because I know some of these people who might have to be in that position, how hard is it to get your house appraised right now with the what's happening with the market?
What we're seeing is typically like a 3-week turn time for appraisals. We have had some challenges in getting them, within that 3-week period, if they are in an outlying area. And Jana actually had a recent person who didn't work with us and we're on island. They had an off island lender, a mainland lender. And they told them they couldn't get their appraisal for it was like 6 weeks or 7 weeks because it was in a rural area, but it was in Kona Paradise. So it was in town. So that is a challenge that she shared with us. Sometimes we can get them a little bit faster, but I think 3 weeks is about the general turn time.
Okay, good. Okay. Is there another question? I don't know why I can't see questions.
Yeah, I'll read the next one for you.
Thank you.
So, James Porter had asked, why or why not would a buyer put down a 40% or higher down payment? This is first question one.
On the financing side, the benefits of putting more money down is you're lowering the risk. The lower the risk, the better the interest rate. So that's the primary benefit of putting more money down. There are some limitations to that, and there are certain break points. So once you put 20% down, you get a little bit better interest rate, 25%, a little bit better, 30%, even better. And that's probably about where the maximum benefit of putting money down comes from the financing side.
30%.
Yeah, 30%. It just depends on the situation, but most of the time, 30% or more down, you're not going to get anything better on an interest rate because you put 60% down instead of 30% down. So 30% is about the best you can get in terms of bettering the interest rate from that perspective. But there could be benefits in terms of the attractiveness of the offer to the seller for putting more money down. So there could be some additional benefits there.
Yeah, I would say that for the agent side and the listing agent, the seller side, a higher down payment shows that they're serious. Also, appraisal is probably not going to be an issue, and their ability to get qualified for a lower amount's not going to be an issue. So if you're up against multiple financed offers, if you've got a large down payment, that puts you kind of ahead of the pile.
Okay.
That's been my experience.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Yeah, because that came up again today that somebody decided should they put the 50% down or just go for a cash offer, and did it really make a difference in terms of being accepted with their listing? And it's interesting because that's why you have people who are experienced, because when you don't, you go like this, I don't know. So thanks, Lance, for helping us with that one. Lance,
we got a couple more.
Okay.
Yeah.
So James had two. That's right. Okay.
Yeah, James, the second part of James is the fact that contingency offers are being accepted an indication that the market is cooling. I'm gonna let you guys answer that. I'm reading the questions now.
I think it was kind of already addressed to a degree a little bit earlier in terms of the fact that most of the agents that spoke about it aren't necessarily saying that contingencies are a good thing right now in today's market. So I don't know that would necessarily be an indication that the market is cooling at this point. But when they do start accepting contingent offers, then I think that would definitely be an indication that the market is cooling.
Or maybe it's more of a per property and not a blanket situation that we're in, but it's dependent on the property. Delania's experience. Nice job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm going to go to our next question. As far as getting pre-approved. My husband and I will have a large down by selling our home on the mainland. How do we go about getting pre-approved when we don't have the down without selling the home first?
So we issue pre-approvals for people that are selling their homes all the time. Sue, you guys just did this. So basically what we do is we offer the pre-approval and we base everything off of that property selling. And then you just cannot close escrow here until we have proof that the funds are in your hands and that property has closed. So that's it. It's just pre-approval based on the same contingency, but we can do it anytime. One of the requirements we wouldn't have is getting a net sheet from your realtor, wherever, whoever's listing your home, so that we know what your net proceeds should be on the sale of that home in order to do the pre-approval.
Oh, that's good information. Okay. Okay. Lance, help me out.
Okay. As far as that was, I had somebody reach out to me and ask about escalation clauses and how they feel about it. So I think you ask 10 realtors, you're going to get 10 different opinions on that, but I'll jump in first and share mine. I think they're terrible. I don't like them. I think it's like going to Vegas and playing poker with all your cards laying face up. You've told them everything you can do. I really didn't give you all the money that I can afford to give you for your house. Your house isn't really worth more because I told you what it was worth, but if I have to, I'll go higher. I typically find that person is usually trying to get that money back after they do their inspection or something like that. I think appraisal waivers carry far more weight than escalation clauses.
And appraisal gaps, that's appraisal waiver, same language? Okay.
Yeah, same thing. So, and we're probably going to have two different opinions from Amber and Delania too. Let me hear your guys.
No, I think it puts a lot of risk. It's just a lot of risk on the buyer. Just like some buyers, to be really competitive, will waive contingencies like their J1 home, like their home inspection. They won't get a home inspection because they won't think that makes them competitive. That's just putting a lot of risk on yourself. So while you do want to be competitive in this market, you also, want to be wise and not put too much risk on yourself. So it's not something I am a big fan of. Some people go to extreme measures, and I would consider that pretty extreme, just a lot of risk on you as a buyer.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I don't see them used very often, and it seems like a lot of agents don't like it. I've seen in remarks, agents have said specifically not to submit escalation clauses, and you just don't know. Sometimes it's a turnoff for the seller, and you kind of don't want to go in, and frustrate them right off the bat or make them not feel like you're serious about your offer, that you're trying to like weasel money out of them. So they get used occasionally, but it's not the first choice for sure.
Okay. Where are we at now?
There's an additional question from Kendra following up on her previous question about contingencies and getting pre-approved. So she said, to follow up with my first question, I understand being in contact with the mainland realtor to double check funds, et cetera. Can the home on the mainland listed with offers in, but not necessarily in escrow, to make a competitive offer in Hawaii? In other words, we don't want to have sold our house here and not have an offer accepted in Hawaii yet. We don't want to be homeless, if you will.
It can take that. I would not recommend it, even bothering writing an offer until you're at least in escrow. Again, that's not to say it can't be done. I don't think we've ever done it because we really strongly it's just a huge risk. Like, think of it from a seller's perspective. You're going to take your property as a seller off the market and put it under contract with somebody whose house isn't even in escrow. Like, in a seller's market, there's just not a lot of sellers that would take that risk. So when you're a buyer in a seller's market, you really kind of need to look at what is going to be in the seller's best interest. And that's not, there's a lot of extra challenges when you're selling and then buying. And I would say a lot of people have the same fear of like, I don't want to be homeless, especially in this market where it's really challenging to buy. I would say maybe get in a headspace where you're okay with that you might be homeless for a little while, because to time stuff, sometimes it works out really well, but a lot of times, there's going to be a little period in between selling and buying. So maybe think of some contingency plan for you guys on that. But I would really, really not write an offer until you're at least in escrow, personally.
Can I throw something in on that one real quick? Isn't there bridge loans for that? Marla and Scott, I know they're doing it on the mainland. It's not even here.
There are. I was going to actually recommend, there's like 3 different things that maybe you could consider in the situation you're in, Kendra. So one is that Julie's recommending is to do a bridge loan. The hard thing about a bridge loan, so how a bridge loan works is you get a loan on your current home for the equity in your current home so that you can use that to put as a down payment on the purchase. The downside of that and why many people don't utilize them or can't utilize them is because you have to qualify for the loan you have, the loan that you're going to get on the purchase. You also have to qualify with the debt on your current home on the mortgage you currently carry, and you have to qualify with the debt of the bridge loan too. So you're basically carrying 3 loans and qualifying for all 3 loans at the same time. So that disqualifies most people to get bridge loans unless you're very, very well qualified from an income standpoint. The other option would be, which is somewhat similar, would be to not put as much money down on the home purchase side. So maybe do a 5% down instead of a 20 or 30% down payment. Yes, it's less money down, but it's not a contingency. And as their agents in this have shared, they don't like the contingencies and because it's a seller's market. So if you can eliminate the contingency and just do a lower down payment on your home purchase, then once your home sells, you'll have all the equity that you're going to gain from that. And then what you can do is you can dump that into your new mortgage through what's called a recast. So it's as if you did put the money down in the first place. Sometimes you can eliminate mortgage insurance with that, but many times you can't. So if that's the case, you can also structure the mortgage in a slightly different way and do what's called an 80-15-5, where you do a first mortgage for 80%, a second mortgage for 15%, you do 5% down. So that way, as soon as you sell your current home and get that equity, you can pay off that second mortgage. So that way that just goes away completely. You don't carry mortgage insurance. And then if you still have more money to put down, you can recast the first mortgage. The other option is that the reason you're having this challenge is because it's a hot seller's market. Well, where you're selling is also likely a hot seller's market. And so you have a whole lot more control in that environment. So one of the things I've seen, and I'm not a licensed real estate agent, but things I've seen our buyers do is to do a rent back scenario where you negotiate a rent back on the sale of your home. So you can continue to live in that home 60 days after you close on the sale of your home. So that gives you that gap between when you've sold your current home. Now you no longer have the contingency, and now you can go buy in Hawaii and have 60 days to do something.
I just talked to somebody who just did that. They were, they did a 60-day rent back to buy the house. And that was how they got the offer accepted. They allowed the sellers to stay for 2 months after escrow closed so they can go off and go someplace else. So yeah, that's an offer. That's for sure.
I was going to jump in and say that, Scott, you beat me to it, but that is good. And you being in that seller's market, have your agent put in the private remarks, or talk to your agent about it if it's good, but put it in the private remarks that offers that allow 60 days rent back move to the top of the list or something like that in private remarks.
Yeah, another option too is to make that acceptance of the offer on the sale of your home contingent on you finding a replacement property. So they know that unless you find a replacement property within a certain time frame here, then that sale is not going to move forward. And letting buyers know ahead of time that's what your offer requires, what your sale requires. That could be another way. But like Amber said, you definitely need a contingency plan because even if you have a close date here or there, lots of things can happen. So be prepared to, put stuff in storage and stay with a friend or get a vacation rental or do something because don't buy your plane tickets too soon. Those sort of things. Always be prepared for the what ifs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, I've seen since I've gotten referral with Eric and I with all these people, I'd say over half of the people, when they said, okay, that's going to close on this day, then they'll call me later and say it's been pushed out 2 more weeks. We're just in that market right now where the escrow people are a little crazy too right now. So yeah, don't buy the plane tickets. Don't get the dog on the plane. Okay, what's the other question? I know Bill was hoping to ask questions beyond real estate.
There was actually a question that came in surrounding whether or not you should have a local bank account before making offers. And is it tough to deal with a bank that doesn't have a local island presence? So I think those are kind of 2 separate questions. So I'm going to try to address both sides. So should you have an established local bank account before making offers? Not necessarily. We work with a lot of buyers that have bank accounts with mainland banks like Wells Fargo, Bank of America, whatever, those big banks that are present on the mainland that aren't necessarily present here. There are some complexities associated with availability of funds and the ability to wire funds to Hawaii in some cases. So you definitely need to do your due diligence ahead of time to understand what the requirements are there in terms of the ability to transfer the funds to title or to escrow for closing. So that's one aspect as far as a bank account goes. As far as having a local island presence for a mortgage company, I do think that that's important. I do think that, and the agents can chime in here as well, but I do think that a local lender is going to carry some weight in terms of the offer that you're submitting because of their familiarity with the unique circumstances that exist here in Hawaii.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Use a local lender. Use a local lender. Use a local lender. Use a local lender.
Exactly what Amber said. It carries huge weight, and we've even gotten to the point where somebody has switched lenders when we've gotten into escrow to their mainland lender, and we panic. It's like, no, don't do that. Your person doesn't understand why. So it is scary.
Mm-hmm.
And from a listing agent side, when I've been helping sellers look at all the offers, sometimes there's been times where there's been a lot of offers and a lot of good offers, and we even look at who the lender is, because if you want to know exact horror stories of hiccups that have happened from mainland lenders, just based on like their time zone is different, like little things that can really add up. They don't necessarily understand the Hawaii escrow process, and there can just be a lot of hiccups. So use a mainland lender, your escrow will go smoother. It will be better for you. Most of these these lenders here on the island will probably be able to match whatever your mainland lender that you really love and have always used for all your other lending purposes. They'll probably be able to match it, or you'll be able to shop around and find somebody who will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A big one is they don't even understand. A lot of them don't understand that the money has to sit here in season in Hawaii a couple of days. I get them how many times you get up to the end and you tell them when closing date is, and they think that that's when they wire the money. And it's killed deals, because you get somebody, it's caused a lot of problems with people who are doing 1031 exchanges, and they have other things writing on the closing date of that sale.
Yeah. And just so you guys know, the Good Fund Act, which I'm learning about, says that you actually have to have the money 2 days, right, guys? So when it says close of escrow, the money has to be in transit. It has to be here, right? It can't just, like you said, it can't just transfer over in the same day. There is this 2-day area of making sure the money is coming over and getting into the bank account of an escrow before they can actually close escrow. So
yes. And that started back in the days where we're in the morning, when everything was collapsing in 08 and 09 and stuff, and they were wiring money, and it was confirmed in the morning, and by lunch that bank shut its doors and was done for business. And so it was federally insured, but sometimes it took months for them to actually get that money out of it, because the bank closed in between when the wire funds said they were there and physically being there. So Hawaii said, no more of that. 2 days, it's got to sit here, it's got to clear, everything's got to be done. So.
Okay. Kendra asked a question
Closing
about
day is recording day here in Hawaii. It's recording day. It's not signing day. It's not funding day. It's recording day. And we do have that 2-day extra thing, and that creates a lot of misunderstandings between mainland lenders and their clients and the agents. It's different here. I have a YouTube video I made about Hawaii escrows, and I'll post in the comments if anybody wants to watch it. That kind of breaks some of the stuff down.
Thanks, Amber. I appreciate that. It's Hawaii's just different in that sense.
One quick story on a mainland buyer that I had on that. They thought, like Amber just said, a lot of times on the mainland, when you sign your closing papers, it's when the keys and the check and everything's handed over. And I had a couple that we signed their closing papers, and they said, okay, where's the keys? And I said, no, I told you it's 2 days from now. I'm like, we've got a priest sitting out in the car. He's going to marry us in our new house. We're going over. We've got 10 friends that are waiting for us. And you talk about scrambling. We're calling these sellers like, please, can we get an early occupancy? And they were hopping on a plane that night and leaving. So it was all, there was no postponing it 2 days or anything. So it's two different worlds, how we close here and on the mainland. And your local lender will understand that. So.
And somebody says, who are some on-island lenders to consider? Can you raise your hands? There you go. Two of them right there. Well, I'll get a little plug for the Wynns. Service, top-notch, excellent knowledge, ability to actually work with you all times of the day. They've got a gentleman that also works with them in Colorado, so he's able to work on your time frame if you're on the mainland. So it's a nice little, it's a beautiful thing working with these guys, and people in our groups love them. And so it's not just me. They've worked with many of the people in the 365 group, and they've closed many loans for people successfully on Hawaii Island. Thank you guys. So, and then Amber put the link in there. Thank you, Amber. Other questions?
Indra had another follow-up question on hers. What happens with the income from selling our home before we find our next property to invest it in? Is it safe from being taxed for a period of time? And the answer to that depends upon the type of property you're selling. So Kendra, are you selling an owner-occupied property or an investment property?
We're selling our primary residence.
Okay, then you have the exemption if you are single of $250,000 net profit from being taxed. So there's no tax on it on the $250,000. If you're married, it's up to $500,000. So there's no time restriction at all. You could never buy another and pocket all that and not be taxed on it, or you could buy something right away.
So, anything else? That's it. Okay. And Bill, did you have something that you wanted to ask a question about?
I had accidentally had sent a direct message to Scott, but I meant to ask the question about, I guess some of the properties there tend to have open permits that aren't closed. I was just wondering how risky that is to even consider those properties. Is it fair to ask those as contingencies, or does it just take way too long for those permits to close for them to get those taken care of?
Lance, do you want to hit that one?
That's one thing that we battled. We try to get everything closed. A good agent should get them all closed before it closes. So you want to definitely look at them and see what they are and why they're open. I've had people that refuse to drill a hole in their granite countertops for the air gap that the dishwashers have here, and it wasn't closed for that reason. So is that a big risky thing? No. But if it didn't close because it wasn't built right or something was wrong, so you really want to find out the reasoning, and they should close them off before you close escrow. So. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I just, the people who live in Kona, they, when this was going on, because Eric was involved with this, during the time that you had to apply for what's called a short-term vacation rental, you had to get all your permits closed, and the permitting process, the office was overwhelmed with people trying to close their permits. And also some people, some of the stuff had never really been properly applied for. They couldn't even close the permit. Some of it was like just impossible. So it matters, like Clarence was basically saying too, is that it's a case by case basis, and a lot of the different things that happen in the home that might be permitted. Yeah.
And real quick, you may have meant to ask it in a different way. So let me ask this, because we have a lot of unpermitted areas that you see on homes. So a lot of people we're built on what's called post and pier, a lot of areas here, because it's on such a hill. So the house will be built out off the hill like that, and then people enclose underneath and make an ohana for mom or dad or for a vacation rental, things like that. So that's a very, very, very common thing that we run into quite a bit on this side. I'm guessing, Amber, you guys run into a lot too. So it's very common. We close deals all the time without getting that done. But what I've seen in the future, what kind of problems that can cause is if you went to add on a permitted room, say, and the county came out and they said, well, this is on all unpermitted under here. You've got to get that done before you can add on a permitted room. So if your plans are to add on or do any construction, things like that, the unpermitted areas can give you big trouble. And if it happens to be another bedroom, they may require a bigger septic tank or something like that, because the septic could be rated too small. So selling and closing unpermitted area is not a big deal, but you need to know the consequences down the road.
Yeah, this one specifically, it was a pool that said it had an open permit. So I think that means that they had gotten a permit. It just wasn't finally inspected or something. But it also, at one point, Eric had told us that the same property had an eagle's nest up there that was unpermitted, although the realtor over there didn't say anything about that to me. So I don't know what the real status of that is. But so there was two possible issues there for that one property but I got the impression from other listings or other posts on Facebook that it's pretty common for a lot of permits to be left open accidentally or not accidentally.
Just they can't close them.
It is. A lot of them, the county was responsible for a lot of those mistakes. And to go back to your pool one, like I had one because the people didn't have a self-latching gate when the guy came out to do the final inspection, and so they fixed it, but they never called him back out to sign it off. So a lot of them in situations like you're speaking of are easy to close. Maybe the electrician, he forgot to call out the last inspector to final it. So that type of thing is usually pretty easy to handle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Lance and Delania, you might know that property. It's the one that's been sitting for like a long time, and it's got like a nest on top with a pool, and it's up in the Sunset District. You know that house? Yeah, and it just is sitting there, and everyone's like, "Oh, why is that house sitting there?" And so maybe there's some different permitting issues that people are afraid of. So that could be it. So
yeah, it could be bigger than just easy. So definitely.
Yeah, I still don't know that I'm getting all the story. It seems too good to be true, and it's been sitting there for so long that I'm just blown away that it hasn't had an offer.
There's usually some reason why.
Yeah, I assume there's something, but I haven't found out what it is yet. But
yeah,
often it is the permitting.
Maybe it'll be available by the time we're ready.
Yeah. Okay, so Sue? Did someone read out Sue's? We'll be selling both. An owner occupied. Did we read that one yet? Okay, so Sue says we will be selling an owner occupied and a rental. If we end up using the rental funds for the new home purchase rather than the other, can they be switched for the owner occupied home funds so that they can be turned back into funds for an investment property without the tax hit? Hope that makes sense. Does anyone know? Want to take a step on that one?
My thought on this, and I am not a CPA, tax attorney, all of that. So all those disclaimers go along here. And I would suggest talking to somebody like that because they're going to be able to better advise you on tax implications here. My initial thought is that if you're selling a primary, you'll get that homeowner exemption from the primary as long as you own the property for 2 years or longer. If you sell a rental property, those are going to be subject to capital gains taxes unless you do a 1031 exchange. And my understanding of a 1031 exchange is it has to be sold and bought like property. So if you're selling a rental property, you have to buy another rental property. You can't buy a primary and defer the taxes on that. So I don't believe that the rental property sale proceeds are going to be exempt from taxes if you use those proceeds to purchase a primary residence.
Can I clarify the question a little bit?
Sure.
Go.
Sorry. Okay. So I think I may have said it in a confusing way. We're anticipating that our rental property is going to probably go under contract well before the one that we're living in. And so our mortgage pre-approval and all that, and our funding and being able to get into a good position is going to be probably dependent on us selling and closing out the rental from what I'm hearing. So is there a time frame in which we could then like somehow pull that cash back out, pay off, that part of our mortgage with the funds from the home that we live in, and still be able to turn that, back into do that? Is there a time frame for that 1031 exchange where we still have, do they basically earmark those dollars and they know that those dollars are those dollars so that we can't pay off with one and then reinvest and then still have the tax break, I guess is the question. Okay. Sorry.
So to clarify, oh, sorry, go ahead, Lance.
Well, on the 1031 part, you're not allowed to touch the money. So yeah, so you can't even touch money. And once it hits your bank account or it closes, it's no longer 1031. So, but go ahead, Marla, I'm sorry.
Oh, well, that probably impacts my clarification question. So my assumption was that maybe the money would go into an account for the investment property, then the funds from the primary would go into the same account, and it wouldn't matter which dollars were which. But you're saying that that money gets earmarked for the next property and it stays in escrow or something?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't explain it well. So you can't touch it, and you have, I think it's I forget the days now, 60 days to identify a property and 180 days to close it, I think.
I think it's 45.
But like Scott was saying, you can't 1031 into a primary property. Is that what you're going to be doing, Sue? You're going to put it into the home you're going to buy and live in here?
So yeah, basically the idea is our rental property is going to probably sell first. And so in order to get positioned to be able to buy something, and our mortgage pre-approval was actually contingent upon the rental, selling and funding. And so the house we're living on right now kind of is out of the equation for our funding there, but we don't necessarily want to lose out on having a rental property and having that, that investment again. But so we're just trying to see if there was any way to avoid, that having to sell the rental and still be able to take advantage of it, use the money for the Hawaii home and, and then pay that off with the money once we do sell this house. But I think what I'm hearing is no.
Are you going to use a Hawaii property for rental before you get here?
No. But what we're thinking of doing is probably buying at some point, a property in Hawaii to use, as an investment property. But we wanted to do that without having the tax implications of initially using that money for our home purchase, because we're anticipating our house, the home we live in is going to take a little bit longer to get it ready for sale and sold. A little bit longer, hopefully just a little bit.
Yeah, it seems like in that case, you'd almost want to hold off and not sell the rental property until you 1031 it if you wanted to not pay the tax and wait and sell primary and buy with primary, but that means waiting, which
she just wants to wait.
Yeah, and the other challenge about the 1031 is great, but you are on that clock, and this is a hard market to be on a clock. So you have to find that other property, and you have to close on that other property, and it has to be a like property for a like property. So
gotcha. Okay, all right, thank you.
Little tax friends here. Okay, so hey, we're at 4 o'clock. That means we've been doing this for an hour. So unless there's any last minute burning questions, we're going to wrap it up. And if you guys want to continue the conversation, you can ask more questions on Facebook, and then the realtors can answer those questions in the comments. I invite you to also join us for the first Thursday in January, which would be like the 4th or 5th. I don't know, Lance, are you going to be able to handle that the first week in January, or do you want to wait till the second week in January to do a market update? I can't hear you. Yes, you will. Okay, awesome.
I did it. I thought I'd make it the whole time without talking on mute. Sorry. Let's hold off till the second week if we could.
Okay, so second Thursday of January, we will do the market update, and then we can see what's going on with the market, and you guys can bring some questions there. And I thank all of you for being here. Thank you for the realtors and the mortgage people, the professionals, yay, and the people who are joining us. We appreciate it. And if you missed the first part, I'm going to put this on YouTube later on. You guys can look at it again. And great questions today, great discussions. So stay tuned. We'll do this again next month, and we will sign off. And Merry Christmas to all of you. Okay. Bye, guys.
Aloha.
Aloha.